Sakazuki has a daughter and her name is Hibari. But also, Hibari has a boyfriend and his name is Kobe. But also, again, Kobe has a superior officer who once genuinely tried to kill him and his name is Sakazuki. So what we have happening here is the world's most dangerous menage a trois, which means household of three and doesn't always mean the sex thing. All right, we need to slow right down, because a lot of people are startlingly unaware of the connection between Sakazuki and Hibari. So let me explain. The moment that Hibari was introduced into the series, a connection was made to Sakazuki because in Japanese, they both speak with a Hiroshima dialect. I'm not going to try and explain what that sounds like. Instead, I'll give the English equivalent, because in the Viz manga, this gets translated into, I guess, redneck. And so Hibari's dialogue ends up sounding like this. "I'm begging you to, sir. Captain Kobe's done so much for me." So in English, Hibari does actually speak with a very thick accent, like whatever that was that I just did. But you wouldn't immediately make the connection, because Sakazuki doesn't speak with that sort of thick accent in English. They make him sound much more like a generic American, a generican, if you will. But in Japanese, the similarity is much more striking, and Sakazuki's accent has even caused hilarity in the SBS segments, with one reader asking Oda, in One Piece movie Gold, Sakazuki tells Rob Lucci, "You've become much more erotic." What does he mean by erotic? A very valid question, to which Oda responds, "Day after day, people become more erotic, and our Lucci-san is no different." In that scene, it seems Sakazuki has seen Rob Lucci appearing rather erotically on a magazine. So he asked him, "Can you lend me an issue? I've always thought that was a powerful scene." And then there's a brief pause before the following outburst. He said heroic. "You've become much more heroic," is what he meant. But the most important thing to note is that Sakazuki and Hibari are literally the only two characters in One Piece who speak with this particular dialect. Again, in English terms, it's not, I guess, redneck common. It's like a very specific branch of hillbilly that can be localized right down to the suburb. But look, that could be coincidental. It almost certainly isn't. But luckily, this is by far the weakest piece of evidence we have for the Hibari-Sakazuki connection. And this is where most people stop because they dare not dig too deeply. But I have dug deeply into the realm of One Piece spin-off series, which is a very dangerous world, because you can stumble onto stuff like Chin Piece, which is One Piece where all of the characters don't wear pants and Luffy literally fights with his rubber man bits. I mean, yes, I own a copy of it. Why, you ask? Morbid curiosity. And I'll make a video about it one day, I'm sure, and it is on that day when you can officially tell me that I've run out of ideas. But it is not this day. That aside, the spin-off manga series are not to be slept on because they do occasionally have a very real impact on the canon story. Like, say, introducing new characters that go on to be made official characters. But an actual great example of a One Piece spin-off manga is One Piece Academy. One Piece Academy is an official spin-off alternate universe manga by Sohei Koji, where our main cast attends New World Middle School, which is described as a place of education for criminals and wicked folk, with most of the young pirates and marines in the series appearing as students, with the teachers being the much older, more established characters in the One Piece world. One of which is the third-year student affairs manager, Mr. Akainu, and he's introduced being informed of an infamous student who has returned to the academy by the name of Hattori Hyota, who turns out to be Rob Lucci in a very bad disguise, and his mission is to infiltrate the students and do bad things, just like how he was sent to infiltrate Water 7. The general idea of One Piece Academy is to loosely, and I mean very loosely, adapt One Piece into a gag high school manga, but these things also work in reverse, because when Oda finds something that he likes in non-canon media, he has a bit of a tendency to go, I'ma take that and put it into my One Piece for fun. One great example of this is, of course, Uta from film Red. The film itself isn't canon, but Oda enjoyed the character so much that Uta does exist in One Piece, or perhaps I should say did exist. Whether she's alive or not is very vague because she's only appeared as a single silhouette. But then there's also the infamous story of Vice Admirals Momo Usagi and Chaton. These characters were made by fans who asked Oda in an SBS segment when the Admirals Pink Rabbit and Brown Pig were going to appear. And to that Oda replied, now, they're canon now. But there is a third very poignant and relevant to the video example of this. All the way back in 2018, a spin-off manga was published that no one in the West has read because no one cares about it, and it is called One Piece Kobiyama Who Looks Like Kobe to Peace in a Pod. That is the very long and very real title of a 3-volume spin-off manga starring Kobiyama, a junior high school student who looks exactly like Kobe from One Piece, because One Piece exists in this world as fictional media, but Kobiyama Kobayama has never seen or read it, so he's hilariously unaware of his striking similarity to Kobe. And unlike most spin-off manga, this one doesn't feature an insane amount of characters constantly taking the stage. It's a much more paired backstory that focuses on a handful of characters. One of those being the original character Akaishi Madoka, a girl who becomes obsessed with Kobayama because she reads One Piece, and she knows about Kobe's Water 7 glow-up, so you could call her something of an early investor. She is banking on Kobayama making the same physical transformation. And you may have guessed this by her name, Akaishi, which literally translates as red stone, but she is the daughter of this world's Akainu, whose name is Akaishi Papa. And he is one of my favorite characters in any One Piece spin-off, because this is what happens if you turn Sakazuki into a regular old dad guy. He's quite emotive, he loves his daughter, and he does that classic Japanese slapstick thing of sticking his butt into the air. He has everything. And it presents a really fun dynamic, where Sakazuki's daughter is in love with Kobe, a dynamic that I am convinced that Oda turned into Hibari. That or Madoka was supposed to be a gender-bent Helmeppo, but probably and hopefully not. But the reason why I accuse Oda of stealing this is because Kobayama, again, was published in 2018, and Hibari's first appearance wasn't until 2022. And I do think that she would have been incorporated earlier, except around that 2018-2019 time period is when the manga steered head-on into Wano, and there really wasn't a lot of room to do stuff outside of that setting. But Oda threw Hibari in at the first available moment in chapter 1061. And the visual similarities to Akaishi Madoka are pretty immediately apparent. Yes, there is a slight difference in style, but this can be explained as Madoka being a pre-time skip incarnation of Hibari. So just like how Kobe has had his glow up, Madoka has now had hers. And also she's now named Hibari. But the most striking element about Hibari is of course her clear obsession with Kobe, which just like Kobayama mostly plays out from a distance. Hibari has very much yet to reveal her feelings and has been generally supporting Kobe from a distance as a sniper. And what this makes me think is that in the manga metaverse, Akaishi Madoka eventually tracked down Eiichiro Oda and forced him to insert a character that looks like her to be Kobe's love interest, in the hopes that fiction would continue to inform the reality of her world. Here's a question though. As we've explored, Oda has included non-canon characters in the series before, but he didn't change any of their names. So if this was meant to be Sakazuki's daughter, then why not just keep her original name Madoka? Well, that's because Oda found a much better name. So it's a pretty well-known fact that most marine women are named after birds, such as Tashigi, Suru, Kujaku, etc. So immediately the name Madoka doesn't quite fit into the established theming. I mean, it might. I don't know all Japanese birds, maybe there is one. But what I do know for a fact is that Hibari does fit, because that is the Japanese name for the Eurasian skylark. However, Hibari is also the name of a flower, specifically a pink rose made via crossbreeding in Hiroshima of all places. You know, the one where both Hibari and Sakazuki's dialect comes from. And if pink rose sounds in any way familiar to you, that's because Sakazuki wears a Hibari on his suit at all times, which we see both pre-time skip and post-time skip. So even though Hibari probably wasn't planned from the moment that Sakazuki was introduced, and is very likely inspired by Madoka from Kobayama, it worked out pretty absurdly perfectly. Though we have this name lying around right on Sakazuki's chest there, right over his heart, which also happens to be a type of bird tied into the female marine naming scheme. And to add to this, Hibari herself also has a strong connection to flowers. Hibari fights using Vegapunk's flower technology that turns enemy gunpowder into flowers and thus neutralizes all of their firepower. An invention that we saw Vegapunk win the Ebel Peace Prize for during the Germa 66 cover story flashback. And this is why I say it's 99% confirmed that Hibari is Sakazuki's daughter, because it's all out there, we just need Oda to actually say it. And I'm all for it, because I think it would add a lot to Sakazuki as a character. Because right now, what I'm picturing, right, is him making a vow to protect his daughter from the horrors that he experienced as a child, and perhaps even the horror that robbed Hibari's mother from this world. Because let's be real, if you make the decision to become a mother in One Piece, then you've just shortened your average lifespan by 4 to 5 decades. And that might be the origin of Sakazuki's pirate hatred. Some ne'er-do-well attacked his island one day and murdered his wife, leaving Sakazuki as a single father determined to protect his precious Hibari. And that's also why absolute justice is the only solution for him. He's not willing to take any risks whatsoever, because back in the day when it was okay to take risks, his wife was stolen from him. And that is not happening with Hibari. And to remind himself of why he's doing all of the things it is he does, Sakazuki wears a Hibari on the left side of his suit, again over his heart, to always show how much he loves and cares for her. I believe Sakazuki also has various tattoos on his chest and arm that look like Hibari flowers, and if so, this could end up being very sad. But if this is the case, then I don't think it's coincidental for Hibari to have gone in the direction of becoming a sniper. Someone who generally doesn't get placed right in the midst of active combat, and also someone who fights using non-lethal methods. It's almost as if Sakazuki desperately wants to preserve her innocence. Like, Hibari is that ideal world that he's fighting for, which isn't a world that he can live in because of all of the bad things he's done, but she is the future he envisions. Hibari in general is also a little bit infantilized with her design and personality. For example, she wears these incredibly vibrant pants that look like the kind of thing you'd see painted on the walls of a kindergarten facility. There's also the cute hearts on her rifle sash, and she carries a backpack with a particularly adorable bear charm. And this charm actually has a story behind it, which Oda revealed in the SBS of Volume 107. That bear is a lucky charm that Hibari treasures from when she was little. At one time, her life was saved by Kobe in a battlefield, but she lost the bear. A few days later, Kobe was injured and severely told off by a superior, but in Kobe's hand was the bear. He had returned to the battlefield and searched for Hibari's treasure. Hibari was crying and grateful. She secretly named the bear Kopi-senpai. I'm quite dense, so I don't know if she's head over heels for him or not. That last part there is Oda refusing to own up to writing anything romantic. For most of its run, he's had a strict no romance policy in One Piece, with some lapses here and there, like that time that Sanji almost got married to a pudding. But here's how I see the bear incident, right? It's a charm that Hibari has had since she was a child. So chances are it was either Sakazuki or Mamazuki who gave it to her. And I'm imagining a situation where after Kobe returned it to her, Hibari got home and told her daddy all about it, to which he was thoroughly unamused. And that could explain why Sakazuki was so prepared to kill that Kobe during the Paramount War. The situation goes like this, right? Kobe stands up and defies him, a Marine Admiral, and it's all like, first you seduce my daughter with your bear shenaniganry, and now you're standing in the way of me killing some bad dudes. No, my dude, you are the bad dude. And then Shanks swept in to save the love of Hibari's life as well as Kobe's life in general. But also there's an incredibly adorable moment when Sword comes to rescue Kobe on Hachinosu, and mid-battle Hibari says, listen, don't take this the wrong way, but if you're hungry, I packed a lunch for you. Oh, actually, I should do that in the Viz accent. Listen, don't go taking this the wrong way, but if you're hungry, I packed a lunch for you. We do have another question to answer though. If Hibari is Sakazuki's daughter, then how is she completely nothing like him at all ever? And to that I would say that's just One Piece. One of its primary themes is found family. So we very commonly find ourselves in situations where children are the polar opposites of their parents. For example, we have 3 generations of monkeys now? And not one of them have even come close to following in their parents' footsteps. Garp, the hero of the Marines, produced Dragon, the politically motivated enemy of the world, who produced Luffy, who doesn't care about anything and just wants to F off and have a fun adventure. It's not just Luffy though, the same is true of many characters. Sanji's father was a king and Sanji became a cook. Nami's mother was a marine and she became a pirate. Chopper's parents were reindeer and he became a human. And Frankie's parents were pirates, so he became a pirate as well. It doesn't always work, but usually it's pretty sound. And it's something that I really love about One Piece. I often think that it can be very lazy writing to just have a child be a miniature version of the parent, as happens in a ton of media. And I mean, it's not that it's unrealistic. That does happen in real life. Sometimes kids do emulate their parents. But I should point out that there is one piece of evidence that may stand in the way of this theory, and it does so completely alone. But it's the counter theory that Sakazuki is impotent, which was caused by the scanned translation of chapter 1113, where Saint J. Garcia Saturn accused Sakazuki of being a, quote, impotent fool, which many people on the internet took hilariously seriously, as if Saturn is just exposing the problems with his fleet admiral's sex life at a time like this. But to be fair, the official Viz translation added fuel to the fire by having Saturn accuse Sakazuki of being a soft man. But look, I believe in the seed of Sakazuki, and I can definitely see him being the only admiral father. I mean, just look at his contemporaries. Kizaru, he's got no chance sense. No one wants to be stuck in the purgatory of relentless middle management, and Kuzan's best opening line to women is, "Here's another sexy lady with super bazongas. Are you free tonight?" But as alluded to before, I can also see quite a heartbreaking story incoming. Because at the moment, it seems like Hibari is Sakazuki's everything. He sees himself as the hero protecting her from the world. But now Hibari has grown up and she sees Kobe as her hero. Dad's not cool anymore. And not just not cool, but a blatant genocidal maniac. Sakazuki is irredeemable. He has killed far too many people and caused one too many genocides to be narratively capable of becoming a protagonist. However, he could have a moment to generate some feels, where by the end of his justice campaign, he has a chat with his daughter and realizes that the real justice was there all along, or some shit, I don't know. He'll realize that he took the wrong path and do something of good for the sake of his beloved daughter. Perhaps a grand sacrifice to pave the way for the dawn of the world, and then at the very end of One Piece, we'll see Sakazuki's grave and Hibari will lay a single flower for her father to rest in maybe relative peace, knowing that the world is now just. Really, that's the way it has to end, because otherwise we're gonna have a lot of awkward family holidays. I imagine it being like that steamed hams episode of The Simpsons, where Skinner is cooking for Superintendent Chalmers, except in this case it is Kobe cooking for Fleet Admiral Sakazuki, and it's gonna be awkward. Very awkward. So awkward that Sakazuki is gonna wish he was dead. And thus we wrap back around to the original ending. But you let me know what you think. What are your thoughts on this whole daughter business? And whatever those happen to be, don't forget to subscribe to this channel for consistent injections of One Piece culture administered directly into your YouTube feed.